the big one, probably in order. First order of business, agenda review. See if any need to move anything around. Any other board members have any comments on that?
The only thought that I had was if we're going to be talking about the regional future land use map, if you wanted, we could move the map discussion up.
Yeah, right after this.
I'm not sure because I don't know how in depth we're getting to the map, but up to you.
How's the board feel on that? Go for it. I want to make sure that we get the reviews of the other things that we get done too. Are those held up more by the maps, or do you think the Knights can more progressively go into the maps?
I don't know what to expect from them. It's the first time that we're all sort of looking through them, so
I would like
Does Jason play a role in the discussion of that?
It might be relevant while he's here since we're talking about
Make a motion to move 10 to number 7.
Second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, we're moving 10 to 7. So yeah, 10 will be 7. And so on. Okay. Comments from Chair, Land Use Administrator. I have no comments at this time. Ryan?
We did get to the select board last week when I talked to Brandon. Normally, when it's a meeting on Thursdays, he was going over. So I talked to him on Tuesday. He said it was too late. So I'll plan on being at the next one next week. Let the board sort of dictate how we go from.
Perfect. Comments from citizens regarding items not on the agenda. Crickets have spoken. Nobody online, right? Nobody. Just Stephanie. It's just Stephanie. Moving on to the approval of meeting minutes for December 1st, 2025. Second. Todd made the motion to approve the minutes with corrections necessary. Mr. Beach is second to that. Felt like it subheading or something like that. Town plan readoption, municipal services. The down line 97. Have a blank spot at 96. Did we want to send the education chapter? Because did we actually have a clean copy of that for the review last week?
I think we added that to the. Wasn't in the packet, but it was one that I had done that morning. So we did go through. It wasn't the one that we looked at wasn't clean, but.
I was up at the budget. My only question on that was the goals about having like external class visits and stuff like that, or did that remain inside the plan? Okay, cool. So should that be under a separate heading or just continue down in there, captured everything that went on in the meeting?
Well, this is just minutes. Fine.
Okay. So it was all done underneath that town plan readoption. Facilities discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I have no comment on that. The other thing there was the quick little sidebar discussion we had. That needs to be inside the minutes. Line 56.
I had a purpose. To me, that was sort of confusing the way that was written. I'm sorry. Which one was that?
Line 56. Heading B, section 9 from the readoption natural scenic resources inventory.
So that was a discussion about what constituted a quorum, and I'm not sure that's not really captured in here because what we talked about is for some reason we started talking about trying to move ahead with this, and we said, well, we could email it if somebody has a comment, but we have to be careful that we don't do 3 people. So and this doesn't quite in my mind where that.
Where was kind of just a informal discussion on that. I'm kind of moved towards striking all of section B out of that.
I don't, we talked about it, so we could just say we could amend it to say we have this question about what constitutes discussion from on a forum. What's a quorum with a discussion? We put 3 people on an email. I mean, since we spent a couple minutes on it, I think we should keep something in there, so we should amend that to be a little more clear, saying that the commission or the committee recognizes that communication between 2 members is not a quorum, but if it's 3 members, it constitutes a quorum.
Okay, I like the way you worded that.
Maybe you could just discuss the open meeting law. Period.
Even
Yeah.
Even though.
And then you could elaborate if you wanted to on to clarify telephone calls, email communications, etc.
Let's do it that.
And then you're just within the framework of the law.
I think that sounds good work.
That works for me. Stephanie, were you able to capture what we were saying in that?
No, I think Brad, I'm not sure she's hearing us.
The audio is not coming through super clearly.
Oh, we finally heard you. Well, I'll drone on here for a second and let me know how it sounds as I talk away. Microphone testing, which is a secret passion of mine. Same Doc Sans.
So it says on the owl
seasonal too.
I could try it. I could try and change it to a different one. See, Stephanie, would you?
Hey, does this work any better? Is it worse?
And if we talk over here on this side of the table.
This is better, yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it at that then.
Cool.
Okay.
So did you capture what we were saying for line 56 about changing that to have just underneath the subject of members had an open meeting? How do you word that, Mike? Discussion on open meeting.
Members discussed the open meeting law, and you can stop there. And if you feel the need to clarify it all, you could just add that the discussion was about telephone calls and email communications, period. The law covers it, so.
Okay.
And, I'm sorry, no, go right. So on line 47, so I know I said this, but I in the minutes, I don't remember saying it quite this way. On 47, members review language regarding de minimis wireless communication tower placement. And to be honest with you, when I read that, I said, and maybe I need to go back and listen to the recording, or Stephanie can enlighten me. She may not remember at this point, but I just didn't know. I didn't remember what we talked about. We had a discussion about. We read through the wireless section, but Ryan, do you remember what that's related? Yeah.
Yeah, vaguely I remembered the word de minimis came up. Let me see where it is in that chapter, and I can maybe
The co-location or minor additions to a tower or something.
Yeah, I don't think it's the placement of a new tower because that I don't think could be de minimis,
Right.
but alterations. There's a process with section 248 where they don't go through the full process. It's decided that
Yeah, and I remember specifically with the de minimis wording in there, that was kind of like the happiest way that we could put it in there to get across what we wanted, and it was not used a lot, so it kind of really stuck out inside the plan.
Would it help if we this is in Act 248?
yes.
Would it help if we added that? Members review language regarding de minimis wireless communication tower placement located in Act 248, statutory language or something like that.
I think we just want to get rid of the tower placement and maybe say regarding de minimis wireless communication Permits, Act 250 reviews.
Yeah, because the new tower would not be de
Or
minimis.
modifications.
It would be more a tower modification to an existing tower, and it might be a de minimis application if it's like adjusting or anything, like, you know.
You could probably just replace tower placement with application,
I think
Yeah.
that's a better way.
Yes, okay.
applications.
The other thing, Mr. Chairman, I noticed was that she left the meeting and I took it over, but to be honest with you, I don't remember the exact time. I think it was about an hour after we started.
It was at 6 o'clock. I went upstairs for it right as we were starting the facilities.
And the meeting minutes do not reflect that.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
So if Stephanie could add that you departed the meeting at 6, and then Mike, you arrived
At like 5 of.
About,
about 5.
I think about
I
quarter,
think that was written in, right?
roughly about quarter.
Yeah, as of 44 minutes.
Okay, maybe we could just ask Stephanie to amend that to, because no one, it was unusual that we started at 5 PM, so we could probably should put 5:40 in there or 44, whatever that was.
Mhm.
Okay, and then who took over as chair after Joseph left?
I did
Brian.
Brian Rosenberg.
Okay.
Was marked that as of 44 minutes. I think that's the recording.
5:44.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
And I think,
I would say right up on the top for members present, you could just put parentheses, departs at 6 PM.
Okay.
We're good there, Brian, say? or-
well, then I should also say that I assume chair of the meeting, so it's clear that when someone reads this notice, who's running the meeting.
Okay, so probably the best place then to have that is down at, what was it, the line 68, right above that, just have Joseph Bubla, departed from the meeting, Mr. Bosenberg took over, as the chair at that point for the remainder of the meeting.
I work for this man.
Yep, I'm good with it.
And then if we look at line 116, so I know we discussed that, and I don't remember if this is correct, in the former town plan, there was a section included in the appendix that netted that who in the township governing structure would be the point of contact. I don't think that's in our current town plan, correct?
No,
So that's incorrect. We talked about putting it in the town plan, so if somebody reads it, they know they have a question about something, it's a town manager's responsibility. Instead of naming Brandon, you should say that the office, because if Brandon decides to go somewhere else or the road supervisor. So to me, this was also confusing.
Was this from, I think maybe Howard brought up the town that he used to live in, that town plan had those call outs? Maybe that's where that.
I think-
Who's responsible for what sections?
I
Okay,
think maybe that's where Stephanie got confused
Mhm.
with the discussion here.
right. So not the former town plan, but a different town plan, a different town's town plan.
And Mr. Chairman, that's all the comments that I have to see.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the minutes for December 1st with corrections. Motion was made by Mr. Todd, seconded by Mr. Beach. All in favor of approving the minutes for December 1st, 2025, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. And any abstentions?
Me. I'll abstain because I wasn't there.
All right, and Hank has abstained. So it is 4 ayes and 1 abstention. The motion is passed. Thank you, Stephanie, for all the work on the meeting minutes. I do appreciate it. Moving on to item number 6, draft future regional land use map, Act 250 tier and state designation programs.
Hi, Jason.
Hi. So you have a lot on your agenda. I'm gonna try to be fairly quick.
Big last words.
Right, but please stop me with questions or concerns as we go.
Do you want me to bring it up here?
I was gonna ask, it's in the packet, but would it be better to put on the screen?
I can just pull it up and scroll through the packet.
Okay, that sounds good. So while he's doing that, what I really want to do is just, touch base with you all. We have this regional plan update that we're working on. Primary focus is housing and land use. And talk a little bit about that stuff and, what it means for you. More than anything, I want you to know what we're doing and why, and it has implications. So your village center designation boundaries need to be shown on the map. just want to talk a little bit about that. There's some Act 250 tiers. I want to mention that and just make sure we're all on the same page as I am and talk through some of those things. So here we are there. Ryan, if you could just go to the second one, the
Yeah.
first pages. So hard to see from where you're sitting, but hopefully you have it in your agenda packet in a little more detail. The first row, if you will, regional plan, future land use categories. That's spelled out in state law. Those category names we have to use. We have no, we can't change them. And then more or less they're spelled out, defined in statute. And there's some mapping guidelines that are following. There's a little bit of room to tweak things, but a lot of what we've been told to do is regular data. So I may not like some of the rural categories, for example, but there's not much I can really do about it. The middle column is referring to the state designation program. So we have village center designation right now. It's got an purpose. Some of our future land use map categories correspond to those designations. And we'll walk through a little bit of that. And then on the bottom row, there's Act 250. So for the most part, tier 2, what they're calling, they have these new tiers in Act 180. There's tier 1A, 1B, 2, and tier 3 is coming. They're making rules about tier 3. The bulk of town is tier 2. There might be an option to do a tier 1B. We can talk a little bit more about that. And I had nothing to do with tier 3, but the new state land use review board is creating rules to create this tier 3, which is going to be interesting. So the tier 1A or 1B is going to have Act 250 exemptions, primarily for housing. Tier 2 is going to be status quo, from Act 250 status quo. Tier 3 is going to be sort of heightened overview. So smaller projects, if you will, are going to have to go through Act 250 and whatever the state determines tier 3 is going to be.
But there's no standard, nobody knows what the guidelines are gonna be yet.
There's draft rules, but I mean, they changed drastically from draft 1 to draft 2. I personally don't like draft 2. It may change again. Who knows where they'll.
So for the tier 3, and maybe this isn't determined yet, but is it, you said that smaller projects will have to go through Act 250. Is it the same review that smaller projects will have to go through, or is it the review that's different too?
Determined. I personally would like to see the projects go through, maybe you go only a couple of different criteria. But at this point, they're saying you go through the whole process.
Mhm.
It really depends on how they.
So is there room for the commission to comment if we disagree?
Yes, there is, it's a little convoluted, but yes, there's a.
Of course.
If you go to the website, I can follow up with some links.
Okay.
If you want to go there, there's some draft rules and there's a draft map. You can look at it and issue comments.
I mean, does it even, I even hate to say this, but is it even worth doing? Do they really even take any of those comments to heart, or they pretty much, we're doing what we wanna do?
I think they take the comments to heart. They're getting competing comments, so yours, that's gonna unfold, but
These comments are to the regional commission.
no, this would be to the LURB,
Oh,
the
okay.
State Land Use Review Board. If you
LURB?
say LURB, that's what I'm talking about. LURB, the Land Use Review Board. Sorry, not that.
Okay, great.
If I-
Status quo. So status quo currently holds true for most of this town. I think, is that what this is showing me?
Probably. I'll
Okay.
talk a little bit more about that. But yes, probably.
Okay, so status quo means what we've become used to with Act 250, which is we are a town with zoning and a town plan. So Act 250 is primarily only triggered on commercial development on greater than 10 acres. Is that still there?
That's correct, and I imagine that will continue that way, yeah. there's a couple caveats, but yes, that's true.
Okay. Okay,
So where I see, we kind of jump over to tier 3 here for a second, I know there's no clear definitions on that. But where it's just kind of highlighted down the corner underneath the rural and under the conservation, is that the area that we'd be looking to see that pop up in, or is it gonna be? Like, where would this possibly pop up in a perfect world?
I'm gonna forget something. The current rules, have it in high elevation areas, with 2,500 feet or more, I think it is. High elevation, streams. Essentially up on Mount Scott, that's what we're talking about. And then they have, class 1 and class 2 wetlands. And then, there's like these travel corridors, which they've estimated, they've mapped them. And we can, in the future, we could look at a map and it'll tell you, it's not a huge part of town. Currently, they're thinking those places are where tier 3 should be. Whether that's where they land.
Well, thank you for that much
so they
clarity.
haven't really figured out yet that the reason we don't have any housing is because we have too much regulation. They really don't get that, do they?
So there there was some political wranglings with Act 181. So it's not, some of us thought, you're getting a little bit here and you're taking it there, but tier 1A and 1B is gonna be a lot easier to house. Tier 3 is getting a little harder. And take that for what it is, but, so I think the legislature understands that to an extent. They're making it easier to permit housing where there's infrastructure.
Well,
Doesn't really help.
I gotta say, they're making it easier to permit housing where they want housing. Not
More or less true.
not just in general, which when you look at historical settlement patterns in Vermont, it's rural in nature. But that's not what they want. They want to densify everything, turn everything into, everybody sleeping on top of each other.
Well, they want all the development to be in the existing village areas.
Density.
Which is not what people want.
No.
We could talk a lot more about that, but I'm just gonna say that's
Yeah.
what they're doing.
I get it.
And they have the reasons and we can disagree or not.
No, we just need to vote different.
If I have a tier 3 map, I'm sorry, no, sorry, Vegas.
Go ahead.
The draft tier 3 map, is that out there?
It is out there, the link I can send you all, I will have it, and you can explore it and see what it looks like, and you can tell them. Comment period might be over, but I would say, send them comments and questions anyway. At least you can see what it looks like, and you can feel free to let me know what you think too, it's helpful for me.
Okay.
I have 2 questions. One's very simple. What does transition in yellow mean? What's that supposed to do?
So that's one of those categories, it's optional, we're using it. Continue to use it or not is a question. For the most part, those are like, best example I can think of is River Street in Springfield, where it's kind of, strip mall-y kind of situation. And there's water and sewer there. We wanted to basically redevelop in a slightly better way, is essentially what that means.
So almost
So
gentrification.
The idea in state law is that it, you have some infill development that's housing, mixed use, but more or less, it's gonna continue as it is.
and is there, why would it be that rather than just saying it's planned growth area? Like, what's the difference between those? Like, it just.
You could, so, that's a debate that we're having, and,
These are, there's definitions for those 2 different categories.
there are, the planned growth area is generally speaking. Quarter mile or a half a mile, depending on which town you're in, surrounding the downtown or the woods. Right, and so there's like this walkability aspect to it. So when you're looking at River Street as my example, it's kind of long, linear, and doesn't quite meet the definition.
Yeah.
But we
One of them had
for
the.
development.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, that makes more sense now. And I feel like I'd probably asked this question a month or 3 or 6 or whenever we last talked about this, but so for us, I understand how like village center, that makes sense. We have that designation, the line's already been drawn. Everybody knows where the line is because it's published information. But for the other things, I mean, here we are kind of going through this town plan thing. And maybe redrawing maps for ourselves.
Yep.
What's the are you taking the maps we draw and fitting them into these categories, or is our map and your map potentially not showing the same things?
We've had a lot of discussions with Brian, about that, they're different. Ideally, we go to your land use map and we say, oh, cool, and we try to make it work, be pretty consistent. I don't know that they're not consistent, but they're very different, the categories are different, and we're trying to make it work.
I think they serve kind of different purposes.
Yeah, they're different, but. So literally our map's changing every.
No, and they serve different purposes is a good that's a good perspective.
They're different purposes, and they're just in such a strict, requirement where we can be more flexible about what we call things and how we visualize things and all of that. So we went back and forth a lot, and it's changed a lot since we got the first draft. But yeah, they don't really, when you look at them side by side, you can't really overlap and see how they're identical because they're not really doing the same thing.
And so the regional is sort of making a prescription. This map is sort of a prescription of regional development.
I mean, we have this framework state law gives us, we gotta work within that context. And it's a little different, but yeah, we're creating this regional future land use map that we're gonna guide, if nothing else, Act 250 type stuff.
And is that was sort of the follow on is like. Maybe that's enough of an answer, is that that your map is for guiding Act 250. Are there other ways in which this prescription is supposed to affect us?
In a roundabout way, yes. So I think the main thing is Act 50. If you look at what our original plan is now versus the draft, the categories have changed and the maps changed a little bit, but the policy really hasn't changed drastically. So it's not bad today. Hopefully it won't get bad tomorrow. But when we review a town plan for consistency with our regional plan, this could come up. And that's one of the reasons the meeting with Brian is just to try to be on the same page as much as we can. I don't know that I'm seeing anything that's like a problem, but I'd like to avoid problems.
I'm all for it.
I really start to see a conflict with the state, not regional, not Mark, but with the state and their involvement in directing the town plan to this level. When the town plan is supposed to be a vision for the people of the town. And the state is not the people of our town telling us what to do. And I got a serious problem with that. So, yeah, I'm gonna be paying attention to who I vote for. I hope everybody else does too. Because I think it's crap,
So,
to put it lightly.
so Jason, I have a question on the maps.
Yep.
So is your map, regional map and our future land use map are different? Is that gonna impact us in any way we move forward with any grants or applications, or is there anything we're missing here, saying someone can say, well, regional is doing this, and you talk to them, but your map's not the same, and that's a problem, right? You said you didn't see anything that jumped out that's gonna be a problem, but I just trying to think about,
We're working through it. I don't want problems. Worst case scenario, our maps are just really, really different. And when you're done with your town plan, for whatever reason, it's bad enough that we say, oh, it's not consistent with the regional plan. We can't approve you. that would have implications. I don't want that to happen. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, so I hope that's not the case, but that would be the worst case scenario.
Based on what you're seeing, I don't know if you've seen the recent draft of our feature language map involving the client, but is there anything in that you see that would prevent you from approving the town plan?
I don't think so, but I have on my list of things to do is just to do a review of your town plan and get a better handle on it and, nothing's like, oh my God, no, we've been trying to work through it. So I think we're reasonably okay, but they are different and we gotta get our heads around that one.
I don't wanna. I don't wanna do a do-over, so I think it's fine.
No, I don't want that either, believe me.
So one of the main things that we went back and forth about was the classification of, there's 4 categories for rural, and there's agriculture and forest and conservation. And a big thing that I've been harping on is that ag and forest are conservation. They're being thought of in kind of different ways. And what I think has the most significant or most concrete implication, and I don't know if we have the answer yet, is whether or not something being shown as in the conservation category, will that be on its own justification for the tier 3 Act 250? Because if they've just mapped it based on elevations and their own things separate from that, then I don't think the regional commission map has that. But that was one of the things we were going back and forth about, was, is that gonna, if someone's here is ag and forestry and the next person over is conservation, are they gonna have to go through a different process than these people? Because then we want to be a little bit more intentional about how we dictate that. But it sounds like that's not the case.
As of today, in the current draft of tier 3, that is not the case.
Okay.
Because one of the criteria is the elevation.
In part, and so our rural conservation, as it's called, is significantly different than what the tier 3 is in its draft forms.
So it's just on this table that you see those aligned, but that might not be the case.
Do you mind? I'm gonna try to scroll through a couple things. Do you mind the next one? Very, very briefly, so our schedule is, I'm not gonna dwell on all that stuff. The key piece is we have to go through a preliminary review with this land use review board. We're trying to do that in February-ish. So we're kind of, with the next couple of months, like really up and get pretty good. So, part of this is to just start a conversation with you all about, here's our draft map, let us know. Following that, that'll be a preliminary review. They're gonna more than likely ask us to change stuff. I'm sure they will. We'll change it. Their final review is somewhere in the August. So somewhere between now and August, we have time to change. So just be aware of that general. Brian, do you mind scrolling down? You can skip that one. Just go to the next one there, yeah. So for what it's worth, that's our draft map. We're meeting with a bunch of towns, and literally every week something else comes up and we visit something, stuff changes. So it's gonna change, I'm pretty sure, again. Hopefully not drastically. But I love your thoughts. And it's gonna be hard for you to look at it in this detail here tonight. If you want larger size print copies, if you want.
In your land use category, you have rural general twice. Sort of looks like the same color.
We could use. That's right, underneath the rule.
Yeah.
Very similar. At least they're the same color.
So
So
that's a mistake. So yeah, there's only one rural general. And I think it's shown on the map. Okay, but they have
Yeah.
legends wrong.
Yeah, I think the colors are the same. They look good.
So one of the main things that we've changed since we looked at it the first time a while ago was the 3 rural categories: the general, ag and forestry, and conservation. And they were all sort of mishmash. And when we first looked at it, I was like, I couldn't really see a vision for how this is all put together, because it wasn't so much circles drawn around particular areas as much as, do certain parcels fit a certain set of rules? Like, is the parcel 35 acres and greater? Yes or no? Is it conserved? Yes or no? And that's sort of how those colors were dictated, which to me didn't do much for being able to look at it and see into the future how things are going to progress and change or not change, really. And so that's kind of where our focus, me and Kellen, and Jason as well, we've been going around those three categories to try and make it more accurate. Initially, any land that was conserved with a deeded easement was shown as conservation. So the entire bow was shown as conservation rather than agriculture. I mean, it's all fields. It's not it's not forests. So to me, I thought if you're looking at a future land use map, that should be shown as agriculture because that's like where agriculture is happening, that and Greenbush area. And so we've changed a lot of that. Pretty much if it's greater than 35 acres, and it's not, well, pretty much if it's 35 acres or greater, it's probably shown as rural agriculture and forestry. And if it's smaller than 35, then it's probably rural general. And then the ones that show up as rural conservation either have aspects like the high elevations. I forget all the different qualifiers for that category.
The conservation.
Yeah, the conservation.
So there, it's conserved lands, high elevations, fragile forest blocks, a couple of different categories that I'm forgetting too, but
fragile type things
that fragile areas.
But I don't think that it looked that granularly because if we, I don't know if we have another, if you look at the bottom left, the southwestern corner, there's a rural general kind of all around this little neighborhood. There's small lots in there. And then there's this conservation area, which is this big wetland. And initially when they presented it, this area was all shown, the whole thing was conservation because it's all part of the, on the state maps, the conservation design, it showed as highest priority forest block because that was all sort of tied into the Hawks Mountain area. But so my argument was these are small lots, there's existing roads and houses and stuff. That's not really the conservation area. That's probably more rural general. And then this area was shown as rural general, but it was a big wetland. So being the local person was able to sort of go and describe those aspects. But
I'm zooming in on this, and I don't like what I'm seeing. And I'll tell you why. The wetland that you pointed out down at the bottom, okay? Just above that, you got the little green diamond. That is an entire lot that I own. Okay, and that's not conservation. It's currently, it's R1 currently. And that swamp doesn't go that far up. You're all the way up on the property line. Come here for a second.
I know what you're saying.
Well, right here.
Yeah.
This here, this line here.
Yeah.
And this here, this is the upper lot where my business is. My business is way up here. Okay. This here, this is, I mean, I've got a house sitting there now.
Yeah. So
and this is, in both of these properties are under Act 250, by the way. Just so you know, but the swamp is in that area, it's way down here like this. It doesn't go all the way up to that upper line. Even when I did my Act 250 to put my business down there, and we set out the 50-foot buffer from the wetland.
Yeah.
I gotta be still at least 200 feet from that buffer or more.
Okay.
With, you know, I mean, where I'm at, what I'm using for land there, I'm nowhere near.
So that might just be a relic of the larger conservation block that we changed, and it didn't get changed. And
okay.
So I agree. I think that should change.
If there's more similar comments, I'd like to hear.
I do agree that down like that's Route 106 is running up through there. And I do agree that down on that edge, there's probably about 100 feet there, maybe somewhere between 100, depends on where you're at and how it goes. It would be at my driveway, at least 100 feet, maybe 150, that goes all the way up to the end of the buffer. That is class 2 wetland, is what that is. And it swings away from 106, so it gets bigger as it heads towards Jensen's farm. And I'm great with that. That it should be. It's a class 2 wetland. It is what it is. But the rest of that's not. You know, it is, like you said, that used to be all part of that forest block that was there, which I think is.
I think, well, so one of the issues that I brought up, I guess not necessarily an issue, but one of the limitations is that for the most part, they snap to parcel lines. So if there's something that comes up in the data, like that parcel probably says it's X number of acres, it has wetlands on it or something, and then that lights up green. The whole thing does.
Okay.
And so that's sort of what we've been doing, is sort of picking out individuals and then changing them.
Okay.
But yeah, that one does look like one that was sort of an oversight.
Yeah, that lot I think is 10.9 acres.
Because I mean, it's just sort of an example of where our future land use map is much more general and sort of drawing circles. And you know, in practice, if you were looking at this and trying to discern in the future what's the vision for this area, it doesn't really tell you. It's just sort of it's almost more like a current situation than a future.
You're just tooting your own horn, dude. Circles for the land use map, future land use map is brilliant. The question I have is, you deserve to toot your own horn on that one. Also, the question I have is, I've come to understand the goal of our future land use map from sitting here, and being told, what's the hope with this one?
So again, you know, we're following state law, but you know, what they're trying to do is they're laser focused on where's their infrastructure. So where's their water and sewer that in their minds, you know, allows for the higher densities, which, you know, financially it makes housing cheaper in their minds. So they're focused on that. So in Weathersfield, you know, not so much. Maybe we got a water system, but you know, other than Muscatney, not so much. So on the other end of the spectrum, they're trying to look at the rural areas. And they're trying to figure out, okay, what's most likely to be, you know, what's sensitive habitat and ought to be conserved to some extent or the other. And on down to, you know, rural, but you know, just maintain rural character.
Because it says future, it's not.
Not necessarily existing conditions.
But it's also
future thinking.
Is this the map? My assumption is that this is not the map. The map that's gonna tell Act 250 where to be and what to do
This
is
will,
really important.
it's still being refined, but this is the map.
That's the map.
So
This future map will eventually become the not future map. It'll be the one that.
it will eventually become the land use map, correct?
I mean,
It'll still be called the future land use map.
But
This is the
Act
future land use map.
But when it is the actual
That
future
clarifies
land
it.
use map, Act 250 is gonna be like, you got a green blob there,
Right.
that's no go, you got.
Well,
At least as far as
yes,
at least as far as tier 1 A and B.
so yes and no. So there's still the town plan, and the town plan is gonna have its future land use. Where our regional future land use map really comes into play. If there's, let's say there's differences in the town future land use map and the regional future land use map. You're gonna get to Act 250, so it's gotta be a 10 acre or greater, you know, you gotta be jurisdictional at Act 250, but the little stuff this map doesn't matter. If there's a conflict between the town and the regional plan, this one is gonna hold sway only if it's a significant regional. So that's
That's
very
probably
few
not a-
projects, very few projects. So my point is, it's not like a terrible, I guess, from maybe your point of view. Your town plan is still gonna hold sway over most projects.
So I should not be looking at this map as like, I'm looking at the green and the blue green, right?
Yep.
One is rural agriculture forestry, that's the blue green, and the green is rural conservation.
Correct.
But I shouldn't be looking at that as, this is conservation 10-acre zoning and this is agricultural 10-acre zoning. I should not be looking at it like that at all.
No,
Gotcha.
we're not putting any actual density language, so it's low density. And both of those categories more or less combined are saying you can still develop there. Conservation is probably better as conservation and rural agriculture is better at farming, but you can still build a house there. We just ask that you don't fragment forest.
So-
you don't fragment farming or
Quick-
something.
Quick question though, a bunch of conservation land is, as Ryan pointed out, is agriculture and forestry. I mean, some people conserve their land and decide not to cut any trees, but the majority of people, many people, I don't know what much of them, many people who have a conservation easement manage their forests.
Right.
If there is, I guess I'm just still not seeing like how this is useful.
I think it's not
like, I feel like I'm not understanding something.
maybe it becomes useful in the future when we apply it differently, as I just was suggesting. Because rural conservation would probably be handled differently than rural forestry and agriculture, even though they could still be the same lot sizes. The restrictions in uses could vary on those properties, and that's a huge change for our town. Because right now, I think most of what we see that's in blue and green is conservation right now. If
Is
you were
C10.
C10, that's correct.
Yeah.
So it would be a division between those two and how you handle those two different, and they could still be both 10-acre packages,
Yeah.
but with different zoning.
And I was thinking it more like if I had a lot, a big wood lot with an easement and I wanted to manage it for forestry and it happened to come up green on this as conservation, I might feel uncomfortable. And I don't know what the, like, what, what's the,
Prevent you from doing a forest management plan with parks and timber.
No,
then what's the point of the?
there is one thing that does, and that is Act 250 and the amount of clearing acreage that you plan to clear.
So
I think there's a 50-acre threshold, isn't there?
maybe, but to be honest, our regional plan has essentially zero bearing in silvicultural practices. So I mean,
The
if you
50
wanna-
acre thing is,
if you
I
wanna
don't
cut
think
trees,
that's.
you'd be able to stay-
That's not
Yeah.
land management, that's clearing.
There's a couple other questions. I think, Brian, did you have something you wanted to chime in?
Yeah.
And then Ryan, and then me. And then you guys. can
Oh,
talk.
all right, well, we done, you better let them talk, I guess.
Yes, we're getting overruled.
So. Thinking about, rural agricultural forestry in the one color. Now, when I look at this map, I know things that are in the blue-green that are actually, conserved through Vermont Land Trust. But I'm not sure how that's reflected here, because I know of one parcel that is owned by one land trust with constant, and the other is owned by the other land trust, and it's different on this map, and it's the same ownership, I know that. So I don't know if that really has an impact on how up to date those conservation easements are on your maps and things like that. That was, so that was the one comment, and the other comment I had, and that goes back to, the fragmentation of the 10-acre, doing 1-acre formats or 5-acre formats. We've had discussions about how important PUDs could become in opening up some of these larger owners that have 200-300 acres or 100 acre, and they want to do a PUD so they can carve some 1 or 2 acre lots for family, or they want to sell them for income. And I just want to be sure, because we put a lot of time into thinking about that. We haven't finished rewriting the PUD laws, and I just wondered what impact this might have on that.
I don't think it's good. I think they'd be more or less in line with each other. Our policies are more or less saying in those rural areas that, again, you can still develop, but you want to kind of cluster over here and save the
That was our
forest block over there.
That was our goal, of trying to do the PUDs.
Exactly.
Cluster them along where, and allows the landowner to get some dollars out of family or give us a child a lot. So I just want to be sure that.
Yeah, I think we're okay there. I don't see a conflict there.
Okay, that is.
Right?
So to Hank's question about sort of what does this say about the vision, the future vision of the town? I think and it's easy to get caught up in the 3 different rural categories because they're different colors, and that's sort of what I've been caught up on for a while. and trying to refine it a little bit. But if they were all the same color, almost the entire town would be rural. And I think that that's true, and that's what we want to see. And then there's just a couple of odd little areas that are different that we're sort of breaking down.
Is that the, are the three rural categories kind of the same? Like, what is there a reason that they're differentiated, or is it just that must differentiate them because state law says we must differentiate them?
I think there's that. And we've talked about, I would be really happy to get rid of the conservation category because I think it's covered in agriculture and forestry. And I think that splitting those two categories does a disservice to
I think that's
conservation in general. But that's my own thing that I harp on.
I'm with you.
But I think if they were all the same color and you looked at this town compared to Springfield or something else, you would see it's a rural town and it's not really the town that's solving the housing crisis.
Yep.
We're making better strides towards the conserving land side of it. So I think it does sort of meet that vision. It's just hard to see because of the mandated colors. But there is a little bit of a difference between rural general being smaller lots. Like I think of the rural general as like RR3, RR, whatever it is. Because it's more smaller lots, house lots in a rural setting. And they're not necessarily like.
I don't agree with that. I think this is the rural residential kind of
right.
idea.
And then the rural agriculture and forestry have to be bigger parcels so that they can support sort of traditional commercial agriculture and forestry.
I was kind
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was kind of curious on here, that our industrial and like highway commercial really isn't represented a lot on here. There's the enterprise section, but if we look over in Downers, there's highway commercial over there, that's gone. I know that there's highway commercial and industrial over in, the 91, Route 5 corridor in that area doesn't look, it's a little represented in the transitional. Yep. But the big one that really stuck out to me is the big gravel yard out by Downers. It's just listed as rural agricultural. Now it's a huge lot out there, but that's not agricultural.
Right, so, I don't think enterprise is quite right in my mind on this map. We're including the airport in enterprise, that's, well, else again. Mostly we're dealing industrial parks that have access to water and sewer, for the most part, are what we're calling enterprise. We've had some conversations with Ryan and we still have some stuff here. So we were talking about Stoughton Pond area where like not so much the gravel pit, but like the stone counter people.
And the sauna.
And then we talked about Route 5 a little bit. What I don't want to do is, because there's gravel deposits, there's all kinds of stuff all over the place that's not shown in enterprise. We need that stuff. But it's not enterprise in my mind. And I don't want to prevent it from, there's gonna be some gravel deposits somewhere, hopefully that gets permitted, maybe. So we get more gravel in the future, and we don't know where that is, so that's embedded in multiple different categories, just wherever the resource is can happen. And so with that in mind, we weren't including the Amsden pit and some of these other places. For good or for bad, we didn't include the Gilchrist pit in Proctorsville or, anywhere else in the region. So it's sort of like one of those, we're trying to allow wherever the resource is, the business be established as long as they meet certain standards.
And what about the commercial stuff in Downers? Is that just because the lots are so small around that you can't really see them when you zoom in on it? Because all I see it listed as is rural, and they got highway commercial down there.
Well, rural general includes some commercial.
It does.
Rural general does allow for some commercial work, right? And that's how we have it right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose sight of, that type of stuff. Not exactly that it's a huge thriving, industrial powerhouse down there by any means, but it is
Yeah,
there.
it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going anywhere, but yeah, it's a good question. Those little places like that, it's not really, doesn't neatly fit in the categories that we have, so.
In land use, in land use, we use something called a conditional use permit.
Mhm.
And in a residential neighborhood, we say a business is conditional.
Mhm.
In a highway commercial zone, we say a house is conditional.
Mhm.
That gonna go away?
You know, if you don't want it to go away.
Good. Now, page 14 of the packet. A Scotty Village Center feature land use draft.
Mhm.
I don't see it in your land use category and I don't see it on the map. Howard, you're gonna be all over this. It's the water. We have a designated aquifer. In that village,
Right, and that's.
and it's not anywhere there.
Before we jump too far into 14, Jason, is there anything on page 13 that we need to cover on before we get into this next one?
I think we've hit on most things, again. There's some changes, in fact. Page 13, if you squint your eyes, looks a little different than that. We changed enterprise. So my point is, things are gonna change, so if you have some comments, that'll be helpful, we'll go back and we'll relook at it, and we'll change things. On this, I'm ready to move on. to
Yeah,
this.
yeah, sorry, I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything on that.
Yep, no, good, thank you. Yeah, we've not included the officer, no. If you think that's something we should be thinking about, or how that might change things, let me know. At this point, we're showing the kind of darker pink-ish color is the village center, which hopefully is accurate. That should be the current designated boundary. We're not proposing any changes. Lot changes, we can talk about that, but at this point, it's, I believe, status quo. And then the lighter pink color, generally speaking, going up north from there is what we're calling a village area. Because that's more or less where the water system is. And, you know, that would allow for more density, if you will. As appropriate, you know, granted, you got water system, but you gotta get septic in there, so it's, density gonna be determined based on the state, which goes. Any thoughts on that?
I see a mess coming. Having maps that don't match up and language that is different. Between the state, the regional and the town. I just see a mess coming.
How, I look at it, but how are you handling?
Well, just take the aquifer that we're on there for now. We created special language for the aquifer. And handled that specific area differently. Even if we change the zoning in the village area to 1 acre or half acre, it will not change on the aquifer. And development around the aquifer in the aquifer area is handled differently than, you know, elsewhere in the village area. Because you're trying to protect that water source.
Yep.
So I just, you know, when we leave things out that, I mean, I don't know about you, Howard, but I was. You know, we kind of butted heads on some of this stuff, but we in the end agree that it's kind of important to protect the water.
Oh, yeah.
Jason, you have that mapping.
Yep. We have the mapping. Yep.
Right, so if you could drop those on there, I think that resolved that issue, so you already have all those. Identified.
But,
So what you're saying is where the aquifer is, your preference would be to be rural general or.
Well, either that, or you could put like
Maybe
pilot
cultivation, I
area,
don't know.
like a circle around or something with a separate designation, I don't know.
Right.
Adding more stuff to maps sometimes makes them more confusing. And if we're gonna not allow, if we're gonna have different zoning for the aquifer, I'm not sure that it needs to be on this map.
So I guess if there's a change that we should make, we will look at it. It seems unlikely that you're gonna have an active project right there where the aquifer protection is. Maybe I'm wrong. In most cases, they're gonna have to go get their local zoning permit, they're gonna I think you guys are gonna be adequately covering the aquifer protection issue. However, I can look at that in detail.
There is a process in the permit process that it gives due process to people who want to appeal decisions or development of certain types. And when you run into inconsistencies heading into court between town and state documents and claims and you're headed down a slippery slope, my friend, that's all I'm saying.
Well, like I say, I'll look into it in more detail.
With regard to the aquifer thing, the next point, I would not want to see another color or, another classification on there. I think just simply like an outline. And then at the bottom, just adding to the key, just aquifer protection zone or something, because it doesn't really change the underlying zones per se, so it's just, we just highlight it as something other than just to show where they are.
I think it's important to know where an aquifer is.
Yeah.
For everybody at any stage, including an Act 250 review of something happening in the village. It could be some sort of development that's happening, in the village, and it could potentially be a polluter or damaging.
I could think of it because we had discussion last time about the importance of looking into promoting community septic systems because of the smaller lots and all these private wells. And I can see where that could be a huge conflict to us. I agree with Howard. I think it would be nice if it was just identified with kind of hatching or something saying an aquifer area.
And that's fine with me too.
Just so we just note it, and then, and I also agree that the map is already pretty damn complicated, and
Right.
It's hard to capture everything. I realize that, and accuracy is also tough. There's things that are constantly changing. You want to try to get close. So.
Okay. Are there any other thoughts on this map?
You're buying pizza at the next meeting.
All right, then.
Jason, there's a couple of like little triangles and things that are part of the state highway right of way and corners like that show up as transition infill. I don't know, could we make those the same color as the highway, just gray?
Yeah,
I think it's a little misleading.
Too, it's a little strange looking, yeah.
Yep, like that section that's across from your office in the library.
Mhm.
You don't think we can put our 200 houses there?
Right.
300? 300? I think it's.
The building tricks I'm not aware of, sir. Oh, you're going underground.
Yeah, everybody wants to live in the basement. That's the new thing.
Oh, I got a nice man here. Yeah. Perkinsville.
Yeah, so here's Perkinsville,
A little less complicated.
a little less complicated. There's no water or sewer, so there's no village area surrounding it. It's basically the village center with rural general trying to anticipate where future growth, existing and future growth. Okay. And like I was talking about before, I don't think it's quite accurate the way it's drawn, but we do have the enterprise being shown there right now. For good or for bad, I personally think we'll be inconsistent region-wide, so we are going to be looking at that in a little more detail. But are there any thoughts or concerns on this Perkinsville area?
Yeah, I always get concerned when I look and see an enterprise area that's not connected to the village area. I realize just because that's what was there, and that is. I don't know if there's really a way to fix. There's no real way to fix that.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, because you think about, you want to make it walkable.
The enterprise area?
Yeah, so you have enterprise areas as businesses and activities, and you have a village center where people could live in those.
So you think enterprise is more commercial rather than industrial?
That's what I always looked at, but that's maybe a narrow view.
Is there a good industrial category?
Enterprise.
All business, basically.
Okay, so they're lumping industrial and commercial.
Well,
Yeah,
downtown would be commercial in a
Okay.
different town.
Yeah, and then you
can
As
have.
village center could be more
Mhm.
commercial too, just that ours isn't.
right.
So I don't think enterprise really fits this part of town.
What about
Weathersfield
transition?
in general.
Does transition make sense, or is that not right either?
Possibly,
It's just sort of an other category.
not quite. I mean, there's no infrastructure here, so really transition doesn't really
Oh,
work.
okay.
Maybe it could work. Enterprise, not what enterprise is supposed to be like North Springfield Industrial. And that's what that's supposed to be, right? So, but we were trying to figure out how do we make sense of she and lumber?
Well,
Right?
they live, I mean, I don't know if they live on the same parcel, but like they live next to the building, like that's like basically rural business.
I agree with you. I think
That's
maybe
like
this
the
is the
general.
right category. Yeah, I think that's the best option. Sorry.
Yeah, Jason, when the state talks about enterprise zone, what exactly do they mean by that? I mean, in Connecticut, an enterprise zone was a zone where the state would actually give businesses a lower tax rate or something. It was a place that they were trying to encourage businesses to develop. And so there was possibly state funding or grant money, or so is there anything in the enterprise zone definition from the state that would incorporate anything like that or not?
Not exactly. I mean, what they're trying to articulate with enterprise is it's industrial park or something similar,
Right.
where there's water and sewer, good highway access, good electricity, those sorts of things, for the purpose of businesses and job creation. And that's for the most part what they're talking about. Again, it's mostly industrial park, but it could be commercial potentially. And we're also including the airport, if there's some major rail sidings like in Bellows Falls, like those sorts of things would potentially fall in the category.
So I had advocated for having it show up as enterprise. I think I'm convinced I'm happy to have it show up as rural general. The thing for me was I felt like it needed to be different than its surrounding, like the neighborhood, because that's what the rural general is for the neighborhood too. But with limited categories and ability to make things fit, rural general probably does make more sense, and then we can sort of break it down and be more specific on the town map, which is the way that it naturally should flow anyway. So,
And I think that's okay. I think that's appropriate. We're kind of we have these certain categories we have to use. You can drill down in a little more detail.
yeah.
And you can also do your zoning and you do what you want to do. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, my main thing was that I think the commission wants to see commercial industrial continue to happen there, and there's a concern about conversion to residential and that being the case. So we wanted to say our future vision for this area is different than the neighborhood next door. But maybe, yeah, the local map is where that is done.
Ours is just, there's a lack of refinement in
Yeah.
that sense, so I don't know how much I can help with it.
Which makes sense, the regional map, not the local map.
Yeah, it's a little hard to get one's head around the different the different needs or different. Everybody needs their own map for different reasons.
Do you have a map with all the towns put together so you could sort of see how they compare? I think that would
I
be
don't have it easily readily for tonight, but yes.
that would be an interesting thing to look at.
We've gotten a lot better with the rural categories. It's improved. I still don't love it.
Mhm.
It's better than it was. So I think yeah, we can get you some, I don't know, digital, paper, what's your preference?
Oh, I just mean digital.
Yep. Any other questions or concerns?
I'm sure I've already asked about it, but on this one, Perkinsville, all the little lots that are shown as conservation, it would be helpful to just have an explanation why those are conservation and not general and not ag. I think a lot of the time we were talking about some of them if they're real close by to a big conserved parcel, like the center, Weathersfield Center.
So
But
talking about like Quarry Road or something?
well, just yeah, right next to the village center on the west side. All of that right
Goes
down
from
to
pink
it.
to green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems, and those are sort of small lots, house lots,
Yeah.
walkable distance to the village.
Yeah, I don't know. Offhand, I don't know, but
Well, maybe only one of them is actually small. I don't, it's a little hard to know what 35 is, but
Right, but if it was bigger and it could be ag forestry, why not that?
right. Well, maybe just because it's already green, and I don't know how far down, whatever, I mean, that Hawks Mountain
That bubble.
forest block might be affecting the
Right.
criteria.
These are good questions, so we'll go back and look at that.
If I had my way, it would I think that would show up as rural general. That little corner of it right there.
Just for visual sake.
Yeah.
Again, this doesn't actually
Right.
change anything.
Right.
Right?
What do you mean by not changing?
Well, does it, if a landowner's property is green versus yellow on this map, does it matter to them? How does it affect them?
It's not gonna matter hugely, especially if it's already developed, but
Right,
if you have rural conservation. And you wanna do a project. If you trigger Act 250. Presumably, you're gonna have to talk a little bit about protecting. The natural resource areas that are on that.
because of this map rather than because of this map.
In theory, yeah.
Hmm.
In practice, I'm not so sure that's gonna work. I find Act 250. Generally, our regional plan doesn't have a whole lot of teeth when it comes to natural resources. I feel like it's A&R's permitting process and contributions into the Act 250 in terms of comments that holds
Yeah,
sway. So I don't
which
know.
makes sense.
I don't know if this map is gonna make a huge difference, but it could, in theory.
Any other discussion on the Purposeville area? Let's have some fun with that.
Yeah, so I think we talked about it before, but I think I'd love to see tier 1B personally, in Scotty. But I think there's two practical reasons why. Maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow we could, figuratively speaking, we could amend it to do this. You have an expired town plan, so right, as of right now, you're not eligible. And there is a pretty significant, as I understand it, water capacity issues, here in the state. I think there are plans to address that. So I think, those are the two primary limitations. If we can address those, we could revisit it. What that would do for you is in and around Scotty. Have Act 250 exemptions for housing projects of up to 50 units, 10 acres or less. That's what that gets. So when projects like that in this company, as we map it, wouldn't have to go through Act 250. That's the primary reason. And that can be big. And there's some other benefits, like I think, say the housing trust was doing a project, they could access certain financing that's better, things like that. I personally think it's good, but I don't think you're not quite eligible today. You might be next year or soon. And we can always amend it. We can amend our regional plan, or the town could ask this land use review board to give you tier 1B down the road in the future. So there's always an option.
One quick question on the Act 250 tier 1A. We're talking here about bylaws for smart growth principles that provide at least 4 stories to a building or water sewer performance. I thought they used to be 3. Is this this now an additional story? I mean, we're going 4 stories.
Yeah.
I don't know how that affects the fire department in terms of their ability to fight a fire with a 4-story building. I don't know.
Yeah.
But is that a change or? Because I thought it was 3 last year.
I don't remember, to be totally honest, but I think it is 4 in Act 181, there's a provision where if you have water and sewer, you gotta have, 5 acres per acre, and it says something like there's an additional story that's.
Right, that's Russia's an additional story.
And I think that's
Four
what-
stories.
I mean, 4 stories now, that's potentially affects your height limitations for that.
I was doing the math
Yeah.
on that. What is it per story? 12 feet, 15 feet?
The commercial building, even with a house is usually more like 9, something like that.
Used to use 13.
8-foot
Well,
ceiling.
8-foot ceiling.
Yeah.
And then you got what, a floor, you got a foot from the floor and a foot from the
So
ceiling.
that's 40 feet.
40, yeah.
Yeah, but that would,
Good.
yeah,
Used to use for commercial 13 feet.
13 feet,
Yeah, to cover the joist.
right, yeah, that's what I started at 12.
Same plus, yeah.
So just for full circle, tier 1A is like Burlington and Brattleboro. I mean, these are the biggest towns. With the level of stuff they're asking for is just a little over the top. That gives you full exemptions. Anything that would ordinarily go through Act 50 would then be exempt if you're housing, commercial, anything. But the town has to administer the existing Act 50 limits. So good luck to you. Tier 2 is status quo, so that's really gonna be most of those. And then, some smaller portions will ultimately be a tier 3 situation like we were talking about.
The tier 1B, I would imagine, has very limited application here because in Ascutney, there's maybe 2 or 3 properties that are 10 acres or greater
Right.
in the village areas shown.
So like, let's say somebody wanted to redevelop the old,
Great.
hotel, so, with their apartment. Let's just say they somehow could get all their water and sewer.
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
Let's say they were doing 10 units or something in that building. That would, if you're tier 1B, go through the local zoning process, but it would be exempt from Act 50. So it makes it easier for the developer.
Gotcha. And what's the number of housing units? If someone was going to do a housing project in Ascutney on a 2-acre lot, what number of units is triggering Act 250 right now?
It's really more the matter of, you're a 10-acre town. Okay, so maybe that's the bad example. You're gonna look at 10-acre non-residential developments.
Okay, so they could do a 50-unit residential development on a 2-acre lot here and not have to go to Act 250 currently.
I believe so.
Okay.
You should always ask for jurisdiction approval, because maybe
Yeah,
I'm wrong, but
yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Well, so either way, if that's something that's appealing, it's down the road anyway, and it probably has limited benefit.
I think it is a limited benefit.
But that's really the regulatory impact of this map is the Act 250 tier 1B classification.
The two primary benefits is if you wanted to extend your village center designation, we should show it in the Act 250 exemptions. Those are the two.
Mhm.
Those are the two things you should really care most about.
Mhm.
The other stuff is great, and I love the comments, but those are the two biggies.
Those are the, yeah.
But the one that's the Act 250 exemption piece, I think there's also language in that section that requires water, wastewater, which we don't have in either one, in either location. So we wouldn't necessarily qualify. You gotta have all those things. for an
Buried in
exemption.
you're generally right. Buried in the details is if you have a water system and adequate soils. That would qualify. So like, that's why I think it's gonna could qualify, kind of. But my understanding is, I could be wrong,
I
there's
saw
not a
that,
lot of water capacity.
I saw that, but I thought I saw it in a different place, in a different tier. Than the exempt, than that full exempt tier 2. That tier 1B.
Maybe,
whatever.
it's possible, but I think,
Yeah,
either way, it's a stretch for study too, so I don't know. It is a tool, and if that's something you want to pursue,
there isn't gonna be a need for you or us eventually, where the state's going. You do realize that, yeah, right? Working yourselves out of a job here.
We'll go
I
down.
don't know. We're too, before even.
All right, so
Working
that's good
ourselves out of a
discussion
job.
on everything that you brought to us.
That makes sense.
Right.
sorry I wasn't fast.
No, the details always.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice to know
Yeah.
exactly what's going on both sides. I found it very informative, so thank you.
Thank you for the questions and comments.
So
Yes.
Anyway, honestly, I wanna make sure we don't have any more mistakes in this stuff.
It looks like that your legend that you used on your map was a copy and paste, because that same mistake appears in most of them.
Yeah.
That general.
Just wait till he gets back to the GIS guy.
We'll work on that.
I forget his name.
When I saw it about 3 times, I figured, okay, it was a copy and paste.
Well, yeah, probably.
Probably was. That's how
Not
I
as
do
bad
it.
as having the town of Weathersfield.
Yeah, all their complaints should have been filed 2 years ago to the legislature, right?
All right,
Yeah,
moving
the case.
on to town plan readoption maps, since we're on maps. That is page 47 of our packet. The first map. And it looks like a map of a whole bunch of houses.
Yeah, maybe I'll share my screen again just to have it up there. Let's see. How do I?
Well, maybe sing along with me.
What's the song?
Add a key. That sound about right?
Well, did we lose our Zoom?
No, this is being shared on Zoom like this. So this is our previous current land use map from 2017. And what it does is basically put a land use type symbol on each property or each building, and sort of identify what that building is. It's a dramatically different type of map than what we've been looking at as a current land use map. This is just sort of showing what buildings are. And our current land use map is a little bit more, you're looking at areas rather than point features. So I'll scroll down to the next one. The next map is the proposed current land use map that we've been looking at. And so that shows basically areas and land use types generally, without calling out the specific uses of each building. How does the board feel about that? Do you think we ought to be showing those different symbols instead of just the building footprints that I have on there?
I don't think there's any need to call out, the colors on the buildings per se.
Mhm.
Because you can still see them on there, and then it's easily referenceable to the shaded areas that it's in.
Mhm.
I think it'd be one more thing to put on there to kind of clutter this point.
Yeah, I think this map shows us what we need to see spatially.
And it, this being different, current land use map being different, doesn't need to be snapped to parcel lines because it's not a zoning map.
Right.
Because the sort of more fluid shapes, I think, tell a better story.
Mm-hmm.
You can see what's really forest and what's.
Yeah, and showing a blob around a group of houses shows them as a unit rather than snapping to the parcels that are, who knows how big the parcels are, here's a half acre next to a 50 acre.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in terms of telling the story of the town, the blogs do a better job.
Especially for a very high level overview before you start going in on that.
You guys are gonna hate me.
Yeah.
Well,
I like them both. I think they both tell a story in a different way, and I think that's just how I see it. I agree with what you're saying about that now, but I also like that I can look on here and I can see where all development is.
I think you're right.
So
the upper one, you can see where the yellow, the color, the colored squares jump out better in terms of showing how much forested land we have, for example.
Yeah, and if you start talking about density and population and how you want to control that, where you want to be more dense, you can easily identify here where your dense areas are. And we know it's the villages, but there are some other rural areas around that are somewhat dense. But the general map doesn't give you that information.
Mhm.
But like I said, I think I like them both.
We could do both. This is a map that the regional commission put together, the 2017 version. We could ask that they just update it. And then just use them both.
The thing I like about the first one is it seems more real, if that makes sense. The newer one doesn't seem quite as topographical, the correct word, no?
It's harder to tell, it's more artistic, I agree, like the image, the aerial imagery behind it, makes you feel like you know where you are a little bit, and not having any road names, I think contributes. I think the other, like the regional commission one has road names and some things like that, but yeah.
Remember what I was talking about before on my property? There it is right there. There's the wetland, and they drew right across that property line right there, made that all green. Now look at this next one in that same area. It's again, where am I?
Mess with the map too much, it'll crash.
See, it now doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
See,
Ryan, what about having imagery behind your map? Not that, I mean, it's hard to show everything on one map,
Potentially.
as I've said already once in this meeting. The white space is a little hard to understand, I guess,
Yeah.
on your blob map.
Because it doesn't look like it has any designation.
tax parcel.
I had a category that showed that as rural. That was what I had. I don't know if that was on a different map or something.
Seems.
But that way, yeah, anything that was white showed as that's basically what we're saying is rural general or rural residential or whatever.
In general, or
Yeah.
3-5, one
Yeah.
of those.
So I could give you a couple different options. One that shows the aerial imagery. Although then we'd have
I
to.
think two maps might be simpler,
I think
honestly.
if we show that one, if you want to have a second map that shows all these building uses, I think it has to be on a separate map, and at that point we can easily do a different base map underneath it.
I mean, it might be easier just to have two maps. They do really kind of show things in different ways. It's very interesting.
I agree. Okay, well, I'll ask them to put something together, and then we can look at that next time. On this blob map, do you want me to label white space as rural residential or rural general or something like that, so that it's accounted for in the legend?
Because right now it's just tax. So like, what does that mean?
Are we planning on changing, I mean, other than perhaps changing RR35 to just RR3? Or, because it doesn't make sense to be, we already had that conversation. Are we thinking about changing our rural designations in any way? To just rural general in sense? Is that what it's gonna be?
I think I mean, we haven't really had the conversation. I think it would be good to get away from the term conservation. I think it's misleading as a zoning district.
Touched on that a lot.
Yeah, the rural residential and rural residential. I think the words themselves are definitely something that we could nitpick on for a while, and I think probably should change. I mean, there's some standard it's useful to use rural residential. That's pretty commonly used across towns, and I don't have a problem with that. The rural residential reserve, when we're talking about breaking them down into different categories, either I get hung up on the language, like it's being reserved for future rural residential or something like that. I don't know. It's sort of,
I think we don't have to, I mean, are we getting these right now?
No, I don't want to.
but so yeah, I think we will probably be changing things in terms of the names anyway.
We're getting hyped, because I'm excited. It's a good, that's a really good job.
So anyway, next map I will label white space. I will give it a label.
Well, I was just trying to save him a step there.
See, okay.
Let's get it to where.
See, on this map, so this next map in the packet, I called the planning map, and it's a lot busier, and it's not necessarily something that has to go in the town plan, but it sort of naturally feeds into what I'll show you as the future land use map. And here under the conservation land in the legend, I have white shown as rural residential. So I could do the same thing.
Question on, and not to get into the conversation of what the names of things should be, but instead of saying rural residential, we could just say rural.
Yeah.
Because I do see some larger parcels that are white that
not necessarily
aren't necessarily full of houses, or we may not be planning to fill them with houses.
Yep. I'm good with that. So this map it's busy and it's messy, and I think it takes a little time to sort of interpret for someone. And I think it's really useful for the purpose of planning, and like when we're talking about zoning changes and where things should go, I think this sort of tells the full picture. So we don't need to have an answer on it right now, but just wanted to show it to you as sort of one of those things that incorporates a lot of information.
Actually, in your legend on that one, just so you know, you still have white as tax parcel up above, and then down below you have it as rural residential. So you have it in two places.
You're right. That's because the tax parcel is the outline, and I couldn't just show white because it doesn't, obviously on white background. I'll have to think about how to do
It's
that.
actually, yeah, it's not a box with white in it. It's a box that's see-through, but there's a white background behind it.
Yeah. I'll have to mess around with some stuff there. So anyway, we were talking about using this as a future land use map, but it's too busy, and it didn't align with the categories that we had in our land use chapter. So I changed things around a little bit. They now fit in those different categories as our land use chapter talks about them: preservation land, conservation land, and developed land. So that aligns, and it shows, there's yellows, the commercial mix, there's an industrial mix. We're showing, and here's another thing that we run into conflicts with the regional and the local is the density, where we say high density is 1 acre for Weathersfield. That's all relative. 1 acre is low density in other towns. So that's where there's sort of inconsistencies in terms of how those terms are used.
Low density and wicked low density.
Yes, that's the problem.
We can do low, we can do real low and wicked low.
Yeah, exactly.
We can talk about that at our nomenclature meeting.
Yes.
Future meeting.
More of a question thought, and maybe for Jason here too. So if we go to page 49, the land use planning map, and you have the red line that says the village edge. And if you go on down, it says development plan, it's a state designated village center. You want to look over my shoulder?
Yeah, well, actually, this thing is done.
Oh, it died?
and Jason-
No, it just keeps crashing on me.
And Jason mentioned, do we want to think about changing the limits of the state designated village center? And I'm wondering if that does make sense, because if you kind of zoom in there on what the state designates as the village center in red, and if you look at the other parcels on the left side or to the west of the map using north is up, I mean, they're sort of the same size and rhythm and pattern. And so to me, with the exception, I think the yellow is the church possibly there, if I'm remembering the layout there. But I'm just wondering if that state designated village center shouldn't go to the north up Route 5 a little bit, just because if it's our future map. Almost seems to make sense to me to do that, because, well, I guess one, I don't understand how the state designated that as the village center. When you look at that, all some of the parcels to the north are actually the same size or smaller as the parcels on the east side of Route 5 there. I mean, so it seems like it's arbitrary. To me, it seems like the designated village center should be larger.
Yeah, the one trick is, the state is, stingy with how wide, of an area they'll go. They want it to be really the core area where there's like the church and the green and, town hall and whatever. They didn't want to go too much further north. But if there are parcels where we could grow and make them eligible for some tax credits, that is always a consideration to me.
So if they say they want the church included, but this doesn't include the church.
Well, so I think I hear what you're saying. I think you're talking about the Latter-day Saints, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just because I've read that definition, they like the churches in the village green, and we don't have a village green, but.
There's a sliver of them.
So the center designation, because that's part of the state's designation program, there's like a couple moving pieces to it. It might make more sense to have that as a future action to consider expanding.
Either way, I just didn't want to lose sight of that because I think that's an important thing, because if we ever get to tier 1B, and I don't know, I mean, I'm just trying to think about what doors that could open for housing. So I just wanted to be sure we weren't missing an opportunity here. If it's a line on the map and we have the opportunity to move it.
We can always amend things down the road, so that's always an option. The village center designation, the main thing that gives people is the property owners within that bubble would have if they're eligible for tax credits. But they'd have to have an eligible structure. It can't be for a house, it'd have to be for kind of a money making together. Like there's some of those sorts of things.
Excellent.
But yeah, I think we should think about that, whether now or later.
Because I think the old motel site that burned down is part of the village center. If I'm reading this, I'm trying to remember, looking at the map, I remember where I am in reality. I just, so there's an open parcel that's available for development and it's in the village center.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to think ahead here. Yep.
I think we should expand the village center, but I think it should probably be an effort sort of focused on its own, because I think there's more to it, and we don't really utilize the designation since I've been here, and I think we could, but there's a little bit more education that we need. And
Okay, I just don't want to lose sight of that opportunity here while we're all thinking about maps, because once you publish a map, boy.
yeah, if it was as simple as just changing where the line is, I think that's easy and we should do it now. But if it's I think it's because it ties into the state program, and I think we want to be intentional about how we use it.
Okay, just want to be sure.
Yeah.
Miss an opportunity here.
Yeah, the same is true in Brookensville.
Yes.
In the village center, so
So we can expand that to.
in theory.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Everything in theory. So when I say in theory, so we need the state land use review board to say, yep, that makes sense. And for them to say, yep, that makes sense, there's gonna be some state agency staff that are gonna tell them that doesn't meet state definition, or it does. And so, we have to pass that straight face test.
Okay, yeah.
So that's the planning map, which you guys will let me know whether that should be included in the appendices with the maps.
Yeah, I think it should. I just think there's a lot of information there. It sort of tells everybody about, what we're thinking.
Mhm.
This is the village edge.
I don't think we could have people with enough maps in the appendix.
Mhm.
After almost,
So the next map in the packet is the future land use map. See if this catches up. And it's basically the same except much simplified.
I think for the general person that opens the town plan, it says, oh, I want to see what the town's thinking. Maybe that tells the story too.
Mhm. And I think where Jason and I have talked a little bit about where things didn't align. For example, in the Perkinsville area, I've drawn the village to be quite large, and in practice, it's not really that big. And we had some discussion about some towns are very active in the way that they plan and develop and acquire land and like cause things to change. And I don't see Weathersfield, or at least historically, we haven't been that way as much, been a little more passive. And so the way that I had been thinking about Perkinsville is if it's in an area like Maple Street, that whole area that's shown here in the pink, future high density, 1 acre. Again, we're saying high density, that's relative, but I think what that really is saying is that we have no reason to regulate to add more restrictions, so we'll allow for 1 acre lot sizes. It's not us saying we need to have more housing, we need 1 acre lot sizes, and we need to get the infrastructure there, as much as if someone can make it work, there's no reason for us to say we need to have 5 or 10 acres there, because it is within sort of walking distance of the center, and if it can accommodate density, then that seems to fit with our
landscape.
right.
This one, I think it's just, I think it's a lot simpler. Yeah, I mean, I have a little problem with the names, and tonight's not the, or the time, tonight's not the time to spend on how we define, but I think we're pretty darn close on this stuff. Little few minutes, I think we can do that.
Okay. And then
upstairs.
okay, I think that's all I have to mention, unless you have questions and stuff.
Are the other maps down below this, from the 2017 map,
Yes.
are any of those gonna continue to move forward with the new?
Yeah, so I think we need to update some. So I included the 2017 future land use map so you could see and compare.
Yep.
But we are required to have, well, I guess I don't know for certain if there's a requirement for historic scenic resources. Is there?
Specifically about the map, to be honest with you, but you do need to be. Towns have gotten into trouble where they try to protect scenic resources, but they don't identify them in enough detail.
Right.
To understand where they are and how you can protect them. So I think the map is intended to do that. But I think it's good to have that.
Yeah, I think.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and the Conservation Commission is currently updating all the language and the details about scenic resources and stuff like that. So they're meeting on Thursday, and I tried to make it clear to Bruce that we were planning on that we're not expecting them to have something, but it seems like they're pushing to have something for us, and soon. So
we went through the whole thing once, and the way the rating system was set up, some of the things that rated high, when we literally looked at them as a group, didn't seem to be that critical. So we're going back to sort of re-look at all those, pick maybe the first to top 10, and then as a group, go out and look at each of the sites.
Yeah.
Come back with a consensus opinion on it and write it up with the factors. So it's if that's not gonna happen, discuss.
So if we don't need a map, then we can just hold off on that one if it's not reflective of what we want it to be. Let me see.
Jason, do you see the packet? Are you looking at the packet too? Page 57 of the packet?
Yeah, it doesn't.
That'll give you the layout of the aquifer that we were talking about earlier in Escutney.
Yep, yeah, I've seen it before, but yeah, yep, gotcha.
Yep.
The next one, natural resources and habitat map. I think that is also outdated. This is basically taken from the old Biofinder program, which is changed to that conservation design that we looked at. I'm not sure if we need to have a map that shows this stuff. And if we do, it might be something that the Conservation Commission or someone can look at updating, because I think it'll take a little bit of discussion and figuring out what should be on it and how it should be displayed. But I don't think there's a statutory requirement for this map.
I don't think that was the reason we did it. I think we did it so that we could provide the overlays for review during subdivisions and development.
Provide the overlay, like this map being one.
Yeah, something you can go to say, okay, this person's building here, and it says, okay, there's looks like there might be some class 1 wetlands, class 2 wetlands, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They were overlays that we had asked for, so that we would have them in, remember, Howard, in doing our subdivisions, because we used to do the subdivisions, and we wanted to be able to look And having it all on one map is almost impossible.
Yeah,
So that was the reason for it, so.
okay. So we talked about the conservation design online map, which might be enough just because this is the old BioFinder. It has the level 1 and level 2 conservation. It just has a couple of, local points pointed out. But where in the plan we talk about the conservation design, it's sort of in there. And then I think a lot of those ideas are incorporated into our future land use map too now, current and planning and all that. Public facilities and utilities, this one does require, the statute does require a map. I don't think,
For what it's worth, Ryan, if you're supposed to have a map that shows the forest blocks and habitat connectors.
yeah,
If you're doing that elsewhere.
okay, so that might
I
be
don't
covered
think
by,
that level 1, level 2 is needed.
yeah, okay. Let me just take a look, because I don't know if I included the connectors. I think not on the future land use map, but on the planning map, I think I included connectors. Yeah, okay, so those are on there.
Springfield Town Forest in Weathersfield. I like that.
They lease it from us.
As long as they pay their taxes.
So my plan for this map and other ones that we need to just sort of update was to have the regional commission, since they have these maps, just update them. So just if this is your first time seeing them, we don't need to go through them, but if you look at them and then next time you see stuff that needs to change, just let me know. And we'll have that changed. Soils elevation aggregate resources. I don't think a lot has changed with our soils and elevations. Transportation map. This basically is just town roads, and then it shows bridges and culverts. I guess it also has park and rides and the airport. So, there might be updated data on culverts or something, but I would imagine that's a state layer that we can just get an updated version of the same map, unless you want to see anything else on it. Sure is.
Yeah. That's the truth.
We can get an updated water resources flood map. Maybe with the symbology that matches the FEMA maps. That's just an update. Okay, and those are the maps.
Cool.
Outrageous to do all of those.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. I knew it was a lot. I didn't realize it was that.
It's a lot.
No,
Brian, what guidance do you need from us to you?
I guess I got the information about how we want to incorporate those different maps, and I'll go back and have the regional commission update these other ones, and then you just take some time to go over them, and if you see things that need to change, let me know at the next meeting. Because we will need final copies of the maps when we're ready to warn the hearing.
Yep.
So that might be one of the things that
Well, the water resources, the flood resiliency map. Under the water resources part, they show the recharge of the well area, whatever, in Scotland. That don't show. I don't know if, it's in another chapter, but I don't know if under water resources, they wanted to show the aquifer areas in there as well as a water resource.
So they have the one in the Scutney, but there's others that aren't showing up.
That purplish.
Yeah.
Scotty, which I assume based on its location is the aquifer up in that area,
Yeah.
Groundwater storage protection area.
but I don't see the one over at Perkinsville. Or up
well, in
on the,
Perkinsville in the
like River
south.
Corps over that direction either.
Perkinsville one's down in the south, west corner or corner.
There's a little circle there.
Here. You zoom in.
But I was right. There were a couple other ones that aren't showing up.
Oh, that spot. There's, okay, it's just on very nice spot. So You see it up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some rains, yeah.
It's a little difficult to pick out.
Okay.
Okay, so good discussion on the maps, everyone. We're good with everything. Brian's got good guidance on all of this, so I think we can, move on to our good old friend that we haven't seen in a long time, the energy chapter.
Mhm.
Who I thought, after looking at it for over 5 years, we weren't gonna have to look at again right away, so. Moving forward to number 9. Touch on the energy.
Yeah, so the big change is that we removed a lot of the PUC review language and put that in its own chapter. So this is a little bit simplified. I kept almost all the same language, and then refined the goals and actions. There's, I guess, quite a few what were recommendations or policies and stuff that I've stricken. I tried to add all the relevant ones under the goals. Those goals were already kind of existing and they could probably be elaborated on a little bit. But at the same time, it's a nice simple goal and was easy to sort of keep the actions organized under them. I guess the big thing for the board would be to look at the stuff that's been stricken and let me know if any of that shouldn't be stricken.
So the energy policies and stuff like that is gonna show up in PUC.
No. All the stuff that's shown stricken here is not related to the PUC language that we had done before. These were already just sort of in addition to that.
So redundant
Yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of just different. There was a lot of
The one that kinda, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and you did say that the stuff that you felt was relevant has been moved to a different section that deals. So
right.
they're not gone, they're just not here.
Well, so these things that are stricken are not anywhere. I guess they're shown stricken here, but they haven't been moved to another chapter. There is one line 260, and I have the comment that I moved that to the scenic resources goals, but all these other ones are just stricken. I thought they were either redundant or not really that useful, or
They're outdated.
or some of them are just like they're good aspirations if you want to make a really long list of aspirations. But I think, when we look at the goals and actions, we have 6 or 5 or 6 under each of those goals. We could add more, but some of them were just not really necessary.
The people mover thing, you took that out. I thought, well, yeah, that
Mhm.
makes sense to get rid of that. That's because you stated up here earlier about promote the purchase and operation of fuel efficient vehicles.
And so I almost considered including the pages from my sort of working document. I went through and highlighted what were goals and what were actions, and then I sort of moved them and reorganized them. And then all these other things that I struck were just not relevant enough to make that list. So some of them, like if you look at line 254, it's labeled as 1.3.1. It has the initial sentence, broadly cost savings may be realized from and the town should consider, and then it probably had like 6 bullet points, and I moved the relevant bullet points up and called them actions, but the one that remains there I didn't have a spot for, or didn't think it needed.
Yeah, I looked at that. I was pretty much fine with the bullets that you get it more simplistic.
Easier reading.
Yeah.
So make a motion to accept the energy chapter. Is there a date or a reference number for this?
This is
25.12.11 -R2. As it moved to final draft. You wanna move that to and send it to the select board?
That's
Gotcha.
So we have a motion and a second to approve final draft of the energy chapter revision 2025.1, sorry, .12.11, R2. Motion made by Mr. Todd, seconded by Mr. Rosenberg, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. And any abstentions, the motion is passed. Bye-bye energy again.
Thought that Nick Kathy.
Sorry, I might have had an opinion on that one.
Didn't want to harp on that too long.
Yeah, moving on to the PUC review.
I mostly included this just by because we went through the energy chapter, wanted to have another look at this. Not much has changed. Municipally, I had made a comment here. There was a couple other bullets related to wireless communications, and we had talked about them a little bit. I ended up moving them down to I don't know what it is. I guess it'd be 10.3 that talks about that's specific to wireless communications.
That made sense.
Suggest removing this section. Okay, and then so I think it's probably unnecessary to have this little section right in here. But I hadn't stricken it because I wanted you to see the comment. Wait, the last three bullets I suggest removing this section as its preferred sites are discussed below. Yeah, so we had a list of things that the town sort of supports, but I think with a new organization it doesn't make sense. So I think 33 through 36 should be stricken. Not much else changed.
183.
Actually, this I had been working on this for several hours, and something happened, and and it just closed. And I was able to recover the changes, but not in the track changes format. So, that is to say, some stuff has changed that you're not seeing. So maybe this is worth taking home and reading through to make sure, because I couldn't tell you all the little things that changed.
So let's move PUC to the next meeting, give everybody a chance to read over it, or?
I went through the whole thing pretty carefully, and I'm thinking we've read this.
I don't think anything dramatically changed.
And I would make a motion that we move this to final draft and send it up to the select.
Second.
And then if you think of things as we're going through, we can still make
Well,
changes.
it's a preliminary, if we send the draft up there, we're gonna get comments, we get a chance to edit it again.
I think whatever Ryan
It's time to
said is
send it
probably
up.
good.
Alright, so we have a motion to send the PUC review 2025.12.02 R1 to select board for final draft. Who made the motion? Brian made the motion, seconded was Mike. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Any abstentions, the motion is passed.
One more thing on that. I had highlighted line 183 and thought that those were redundant. Should I remove them, or should we rework them, or?
I think, I read that and, I agree with you that it's redundant, and I think we ought to just get rid of it.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, this thing is pretty in depth. If you read through it, I mean, and then I spent a lot of time with Anita Smith on this thing.
Right.
So,
Annette.
I'm sorry, Annette. So,
That's how long you spent with her.
it's been that, yes.
So to that point, I've been thinking, as much as we don't want to draw things out, is it worth sending her a copy of this again and
No.
just saying we've reorganized?
I
No.
think that would just open up a whole nother
Okay.
revision.
We gotta take the diapers off and
All
on.
Sounds good.
So the way I look at that is we've made significant revisions to this whole, I mean, major league revisions to the
Mhm.
thing. So I would say, let's send it to the select board, see what happens.
Mhm.
And then I'll sleep on it overnight, and if I haven't changed the part, I'll let you know.
Sure.
I think the thing to consider in all of these is that they're all moving targets.
Yeah.
And every time you set it down for a month or two, there's something new to discuss.
Mhm.
That's what boys
Yeah.
said. When we finish it, it's okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that.
If we keep working on this, we're never gonna get it done either. I think it's time to get it out of here.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Great, because that's what we voted.
I'm gonna say we already did it.
It's too late.
We already said it, guys. And then let's see here, moving on to town plan reduction transportation. I see this is on a final draft format here.
So, Mr. Chairman, we spent a fair amount of time discussing this at the last meeting, I believe, and thought we were very, very, very close. If I remember.
Yeah, actually, the only reason that I included it was because I had intended to go to the select board last Monday and then would come back to discuss this. So it was on the future agenda items and stuff, but yeah, nothing has
We
changed.
already voted to send
We
this.
already got the schedules,
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I was confused for just a moment.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it. It was just on our, we want to have it on the agenda next week, so I put it on there. But yeah, that was the reason, was because we hadn't really talked too much and wanted to get their comments, but yeah,
Okay.
so
So
it remains in the same spot.
And
It's
it'll be on the next one.
Yeah.
For the same reason.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's already done.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yep.
So,
We're getting pretty late, Joe.
right,
That's it.
Ryan, how many chapters are left? Is
that's, you've seen them all.
that's the last one now?
Yeah.
So technically-
The utilities and facilities, I wanted to meet with Brandon and Wendy Smith from the Aquifer, the water district.
Yeah.
And that it didn't align. So I'm meeting with her on Thursday. So we'll have some more changes on, or potential, we'll have some more just to discuss on that. We haven't finalized that one. But that's pretty much the last one.
What are we on, revision 2 or 3?
100 something. I give them a new R number after major changes, and then I just update the date every time we make minor things, and it's on like R6 or 7. Which is certainly the one we've revised the most.
Into a record.
Yeah. But we are certainly getting close. We have on the agenda, you'll see there's a link there. That will bring you to all the clean copies of everything on the website. And I plan on being on the select board agenda at their next meeting. If anyone wants to join, even if it's just on Zoom or something.
I'll be there.
Yeah, Mike will be there, so that'll be
Right.
that'll be good.
Well, as long as there's one planning commission representative, fine.
That's Mr. Chairman's last meeting of the year.
It is.
Yes, we're not gonna meet again unless you guys are willing.
No, he did not want to meet on the 29th, I think it was, because he needs the time to spend with the documents.
Mhm.
Spend with the documents.
That's what I'll be doing.
That's what it'd be. Because
Me and the documents.
Jingle bells, jingle bells.
You can.
So this, we did it, sort of.
So.
Careful.
Basically, he said it.
Big job, big job. Yeah.
But it's still probably March, April that we're looking at full adoption by the select board.
Yeah, because we got 2 sets of hearings to go through.
Hearings, it's a 30-day warning.
Yeah.
We have to have everything finalized before I send that warning out, so.
Well, I'll make this statement. We wouldn't be here without you.
That's how it's
Mhm.
Thank you very much. for
Absolutely.
all the work you did.
And once we get it warned, then we can move on with other discussions about other things while we're waiting for that hearing to come around.
And this is-
Pizza's right on top of my list.
Yeah.
No, that's back on bottom, man. I think small lots, it's gonna be where I'm gonna dot down the bridge again.
Hmm.
Well, guys, we did it. So, future item business, we kind of just touched on that. Any other business that anybody else like to discuss?
Well, so at the next meeting,
Next year.
we'll have a couple of sections again to look at. Do you want to have some kind of we should do some kind of regroup with like what are our next priorities and
Oh, I would like to suggest we have sort of a planning session, because I have a short list of bylaws that we need to look at that I've kind of been taken away at and kind of shelf.
thanks, Jason.
And so maybe we have
Hey,
to
Jason,
have a.
just hang on for just 1 second.
Yes, okay.
I just want, I'm gonna say something here and I want you to hear it too, but that's, okay. It's not about zoning, it's just about the town. So,
About the
yeah,
state.
No big deal. Interesting, right? Yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, you'll understand in a minute.
Oh, we're all on the edge of our seats, so go ahead.
Well, don't do that. We were talking about, I think we're on other business, any other business that can be legally discussed. The first thing is, are we hoping that we're coming back after the new year and everything has now been to the select board, and we're gonna set a hearing? So, will we be there? Will we be ready for that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we'll still need clean copies of everything finalized and the maps.
Okay.
Everything needs to be organized. So I think, yeah, we're probably best case scenario. I think second meeting in January, more likely February would be it's just my feeling. But
Okay, so just for everybody's knowledge, over this past month, we've lost two residents in this town that were pretty prominent. Ginger Wentberg's husband Jim passed, and this past week, Gene Adams passed. Big losses to the town, and I thank you for staying for this. It's important to recognize some of these people as they move on to the places we'll all be someday, I guess. But anyway, just wanted to, let everybody know about that, in case anybody had missed it.
thanks.
That's it.
Alright,
That's
out of here now.
it. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to, I was sorry to hold you up, but I didn't want to.
Okay. So I was gonna suggest we have a planning strategy and what we, because everybody has different things that we've talked about, potentially shelve things. And so I think now we have a little breather. I think it'd be nice to kind of say, okay, I know we have work to do on the town plan, but these are the other items we should start moving to the top. Amongst ourselves, say, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, so we get some things going.
Number 1 takes care of all 2, 3, and 4.
When's the next pizza?
Yeah.
No. Zoning bylaws.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Which zoning bylaw? I started on driveways, I have a drafted driveway. I met with the fire chief, the road superintendent, spent an afternoon riding around looking at things. I got a whole list of suggestions, I got a rough draft, but I shut it away.
I think we gotta recategorize.
Yeah.
Right, because you're gonna have to have that to start with, as you start putting things in place.
Yeah, the districts themselves.
So I have a list of things because of when we've made changes in the town plan, like wireless telecommunication, we need to rewrite the bylaw for that, so it works with the town plan.
I have a goal for the zoning bylaws,
What's that?
10 pages or less.
First type,
Yeah.
like 4?
Oh, no, I think the font should be like 22.
10 pages for the television.
Sounds like it's another time for a petition, Mike.
I think we should have zoning, but I think it should be straightforward.
So the discussion then should be like a strategic planning session where we're sort of throw everything out there.
Yep.
We'll get it all written down and then we can organize and figure out plan of attack.
Our next meeting is gonna be on January 5th.
Yes.
Another year older and deeper in debt.
Motion
Second.
approved.
See, all I had to do was
It is.
I was gonna say something, but I see you got that here. Move to move.
Writing.
Gentlemen, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, all that stuff.
Thank you, Stephanie.
It's a pleasure working with you all. It's a very thoughtful, and
Thanks, guys.
respectful-
Night.
Good night, Steph. Thank
Good
you.
night.